In this video, we're going to look at another model of the brain. We're now looking at two major parts of the brain. There's the cerebrum, and down here the cerebellum. Now you can see on the cerebrum there are these ridges that stick out, separated by indentations here. The ridges of tissue that stick out there and here and over here, a ridge of brain tissue that sticks out is called a gyrus. In between those two, you have a sulcus, which is a shallow indentation. So when we look at this, you see all of these gyri. Gyri is plural for gyrus. But this area right here is very specific. We're following all the way down without any breaks. It looks like the same thing over here, but you can't see on the top. There are some breaks. But over here, it's a continuous indentation all the way down here. Now that's an important structure to identify. That's called the central sulcus. And it's the dividing point between the frontal lobe here and the parietal lobe here. And then you have your temporal lobe back here. Temporal lobe here and occipital lobe. So occipital lobe, parietal lobe, frontal lobe, and temporal lobe of the cerebrum. That point, the central sulcus, that line right there, you have a gyrus behind it and a gyrus in front of it. This is called the pre-central gyrus. And then the one behind the central sulcus is a post-central gyrus. We look at the view from the anterior side. You see this really deep indentation that separates the left cerebral hemisphere from the right cerebral hemisphere. That deep indentation, that's called a longitudinal fissure. And a fissure is going to be wider than a sulcus. On this model, we open it up and take a look at the internal structures. We can see the inside of the cerebellum, and here again is the cerebrum. See if I can hold that. So here's a diencephalon. You have your thalamus, this cone shape, the hypothalamus, and then it would be right here, but it fell off of the model. That would be your pituitary gland. That's all diencephalon. And then the brainstem, brainstem, you would have the midbrain in here. You would have the pons, this little egg-shaped area, and then the medulla oblongata back here. And then further down, it's where the brainstem becomes the spinal cord. So there are some other structures that you cannot see on these models that you'll have to go to your book figures to identify. For example, on the models I've been showing you, you can't see the dura mater or the pia mater or the arachnoid mater. You can't see some of the areas that are filled with cerebral spinal fluid, like the lateral ventricles. You can't see the subarachnoid space. Again, go to figures in your book to identify those. I hope this video helped.